Hello, it's Call's Show. This is the 2021 Travelers Championship. I lost my sense of words. The DFS Tactics. Oh, it's been a long day. A couple of reminders, as always. All statistics are provided by FantasyNational.com. Amazing resource. Please go check them out. Well worth the investment. The second is I have modified the web page and the Excel file that I use, trying to make it fit better on the screen. From my end, it looks like it's stretched out a little bit. So please let me know how it looks in the comments, or shoot me a message or something, just to see how it looks from your end, if it's still visible. I know a lot of people like the way it is being viewed now, but I wasn't able to show everything. So again, just let me know if it's not, you can't see it, or it's distorted too much for you. Like I said, it looks stretched from my point of view, but this way I'm able to show everything that I want to. As I said, this is the DFS Tactics show for the Travelers Championship at TBC River Highlands in Cromwell, Connecticut. Mainly focused on DraftKings, but the strategy can be used across any DFS site that you use. So without further ado, let's get into it. Transition there with my software. This is the home site for FantasyNational.com, and as always, I'm going to be a big proponent, highly advocate that you go check them out. I would not be able to provide the deep analytical viewpoint that I do without this. It's an amazing tool, well worth the investment. I say it every episode, and I'll continue to hammer it home. Please don't think that I gather all this data by myself. Absolutely not. I'm not going to take any credit for that. I just look at the data and provide my statistical viewpoint on it as a data miner in my career. So with the Fantasy National, this is the kind of the base model, if you will, and I have removed most of the top up here so that way I can show you what I'm really trying to show you down at the bottom of some of these pages. But they have pricing for DraftKings, for FanDuel, Yahoo, all the pricing that you could, whatever site that you use for daily fantasy. Like I said, I focus on DraftKings, so this is the DraftKings pricing. But just for example, I'll click onto FanDuel, see how prices differ. So you can see there's quite a bit of difference. DeChambeau apparently is 12.3 on FanDuel, and he's, I think, 10.7 or 10.9 on DraftKings. So again, all kudos, all props to FantasyNational.com that they're able to program this week over week for whatever tournament that's going on at the PGA. I can't say enough for the site itself. So getting back into DraftKings pricing here, this is over the last 36 rounds, and that's kind of the baseline that I use when I am looking at a totality of stats. I feel like it gives a good indicator on how some recent form, but also a long-term baseline for player performance goes, especially on some key metrics that tend to normalize over time. For the past 36 rounds, just a basic sort ranking on strokes gained total, and it shows that Patrick Reed is number one for strokes gained this week of the players in the field. And I'll go into a little bit later how there's a couple of players that I know have withdrawn. I searched or looked at the PGA leaderboard, and Daniel Berger, Johnny Vegas, Luke List, there's a couple others, just don't have tee times, and yet they've been listed in here. So this is generated at the beginning of the week, I think Sunday, maybe even Saturday, and by that time, players had not withdrawn yet. So I'll make sure to go ahead and really point that out whenever we dig into it. But again, on an overall level, number one strokes gained, Patrick Reed. Probably no surprise. His weakest game has historically been off the tee, but he comes in with great form. Again, last 5 tournaments has been very, very good and slightly below average to the field off the tee. And this week, that is going to play right in Patrick Reed's wheelhouse. Off the tee is not the most important of statistics this week. Unlike last week at the U.S. Open at Torrey Pines, where you needed to hit the ball a long way and in the fairway, or find fairways if you're not going to hit it very long. So this right here I'm not very concerned about at all. As I scrolled too far down. This I'm not very concerned with at all. The rest of his game is in great form coming in. And, coming off a top 20 at the U.S. Open last week at Torrey Pines, 5th at the Memorial. Did not play well at Charles Schwab, which gives me a little pause. But, another top 20 at the PGA, 6th at the Wells Fargo. So his game is in great form right now. And there's a good reason why Patrick Reed is leading in the strokes gained category coming into the tournament. You see here, bent is his preferred surface. These are bent greens. I did in the data dive on Monday. I knew there was bent and overseeded POA, and I had thought that TPC River Highlands is where the event is being played this week, was classified as POA. It's actually classified as bent. So that's a correction on my part. Missed that one. But bent being the green types this week, Patrick Reed's preferred surface at almost, exactly 0.4 of a stroke per round gained on the field on bent surfaces. So Patrick Reed, an okay putter. I think he gets more credit than he deserves based on some Ryder Cup big performances. Not a bad putter by any means, but I don't think he is as fantastic as the general public thinks he is at putting. His short game prowess is certainly undeniable, and his approach game has been stellar of late, minus the miscut at the Charles Schwab. 3.5, almost 6, 3, pretty average here, but still gaining and playing well. So again, there's a reason Patrick Reed is number one in strokes gained total. When it's difficult, he rises to the top. There's not much to say on Patrick Reed. There's a reason he's usually one of the favorites at a tournament. He's number one in strokes gained. Paul Casey, Patrick Cantlay, Abraham Answer, Desham, Scheffler, Hoffman, Grillo, Tony Finau, and Brian Harmon are your top 10 in strokes gained total. No real surprises, with the exception that Brooks falls just outside of it, and Dustin Johnson is 23rd. That is a little surprising, although his game has been, as some of the industry pundits put it, whack-a-mole lately. Generally, he's been a very good around the green player, and he's just hasn't been lately. He's always been good off the tee. His approaches have been hit and miss lately. Like I said, he'll gain 2.5, and then the week before he'll lose 2, gain a little over 1.5, lose 2.5, lose 4, gain 3. It's pick a week. You're gonna lose or gain more than just a fair share of strokes, and it's been across the board on a lot of his statistics lately. Minus off the tee, he's always been a good off the tee player. He's had 3 straight rounds of good form putting, but before that, he missed at the Valspar at 6/10, then gained a bunch, lost 10 at Congressional. Lose, and so his game has been all over the place. Bent, he's okay, not great. He's just field average. Pardon me while I get the live chat up over on my screen here. By the way, join me in chat. Meant to say something at the top of this, but join me in chat. Would love interaction. You have questions, outright betting or DFS tactics or things that you're looking at or want me to dive into some more. Join in on chat. Smash that like button. Trying to help you all out, win some money. That way you can use a service like FantasyNational.com and you don't have to listen to an idiot like me, especially on US Open week where if I had an ass, I lost it. But coming back to the Travelers here, Dustin Johnson's a little surprising. He's 23rd, or at least the public might think it's surprising that he's only 23rd, but his game's been kind of all over the place lately. So just highlighting that there. One of the big components this week is going to be putting. I did this in the initial research show, which go check that out. But I have never seen a spread quite like this, approach versus putting. These two are generally higher than off the tee and around the green. For high-end finishers, you're generally going to be putting well. You're generally going to be hitting your irons well. That's why you're coming in top 10, top 5 winning events. But I've never seen a spread of almost 0.15. That's a quite a margin. I know that doesn't sound like much, 15 hundredths. But approach usually outweighs putting, or is they're neck and neck. And I'm not the biggest analytical person on putting. It's a fickle stat. 1 week you can putt well, and the next one you lose it. So I tend to value putting on a long-term basis. If someone has shown that they are a competent putter or just god awful on the greens, then I'll put a lot more weight into it. But week over week putting can seem hit and miss, whack-a-mole, whatever, inconsistent, whatever term you want to use. But it is going to be very important this week due to this spread right here. I mean, you're looking at the average top 10 finishers. Average top 10 gains almost a stroke around on the greens. So there is something to be said about being able to putt on these greens at TPC River Highlands. So when you're looking at DFS tactics and even in betting, you're wanting to find guys who are, I prefer guys who are fairly volatile in putting, the inconsistent putters, the guys who perhaps their irons have been playing well, they're driving it well, but they haven't been making putts. If that's the case, their game is in good form, and if they find the putter, and it's no guarantee that they do, but if they find the putter that week, you're in a great spot, given that your other parts of your game stay like they have been, that you're going to be a high finisher. Take someone like Charlie Hoffman, for example. Charlie Hoffman has been absolutely unconscious, don't wake this man up, with his irons this year. And I'm not saying he's a bad putter. He has not been a bad putter at all. That's why he's had a lot of high finishes. But let's say Charlie Hoffman had been not very good with the putter, or just kind of average. In fact, let's just go check Charlie Hoffman, and you'll see here. I mean, the off the tee he's gained in 7 straight. Take the U.S. Open out, which is a tough course. Everyone has bad weeks. I'm not giving him any excuses. He didn't play well. He still made the cut. But look at the other performances this year in the approach. 2.5 at Memorial. 8. I mean, that is lap the field stupid numbers there. 8, almost, a little over 8. 6.5. He did lose at the RBC Heritage and still came in 18th. 6 at the Valero. 7.5 almost at the Players. 5.5. Again, these are look back in the mirror and laugh at your opponents type numbers. But his putting has been inconsistent. Dead even at the U.S. Open. Lost 4 at the Memorial. Gained 4. Slightly below. 1.5. Bad, 1.5 in the bad. 3 in the good. 3.5 in the good. I am much more willing to put my stake on a player like Charlie Hoffman when his off the tee game and especially his approach has been so stellar. If you find a week, I mean, he might have a week like -4 on the green, like at the Memorial, and you get a 57th from him. That's the chance I'm willing to take, because if you find the week that he gains and stays in form, you're going to get a 3rd. So that's just my reasoning, my advice to you all, and how I view putting in general. That's why I hammer home. I much prefer approach game, and to a lesser extent off the tee, because if you're hitting your irons well, generally you're going to give yourself more looks and better looks at birdies. Now, if you can't convert them, that's when you're not taking advantage of that, like Charlie Hoffman here in a couple of these events. But again, I just much prefer seeing this in a player. The irons are hot. The off the tee is really good. Maybe not as good as the irons, but good. So that's why I don't really put a lot of stock into putting unless they have shown consistent form one way or the other, good or bad or neutral. But let's take a look at putting as I showed you the course breakdown and how important putting is going to be this week. The last 36 rounds, and I'm going to narrow that to the last 24. I want to really come in and hone in on who's putting well lately. And Vaughn Taylor, Chesson Hadley, Patton Kazire, Zach Johnson, Troy Merritt, Cameron Smith. These are guys known for their putting, and you can see how atrocious some of these players have been in other categories. That's why you're not Vaughn Taylor, for example, why you've not seen him at the top of the leaderboard lately. Very good putter. He loses 4 strokes off the tee at the Palmetto. Has a pretty good Memorial, but didn't hit an iron to save his life. He just saved himself with the putter. But the weeks where he doesn't putt well, and it happens, he loses 2.5 at the Wells Fargo. It's bad. It's really bad. So that's why another reason why I don't value putting all that much. But this doesn't tell you the entire story. This is just last 24 rounds over all green surfaces. POA, Bermuda, Bent, Paspalum, which is what Kiowa Island at the PGA was. So let's add this filter of bent greens. Let's see, in the last 24 rounds players have had on bent greens, who's been putting well. And this list kind of starts to narrow in on who the consistent players are in these metrics. Brendan Todd, not very good off the tee, not a lot of distance. Well, fine fairways, not a lot of distance, very good on the greens. Zach Johnson was in the overall 24 rounds. He was in the unfiltered putting list. Christopher Ventura, Ian Poulter, Tringali, Adam Scott, Harmon was up there. Cameron Smith was in the unfiltered list. Pat Desire was in the unfiltered list. So this tells you a lot better story when you add this bent filter on who, generally speaking, there in past performances has putted well on bent greens. The other thing that I want to really hone in on, because we'll take a look at this past course conditions tab. There's a common theme among greens here at TPC River Highlands. They are always fast. All of 2020 they were fast. All of 2019 they were fast. 2018 they were fast. 2017 they were fast. The past 4 years they've been considered fast. Whatever metric FantasyNational.com uses. I don't know what that is. I can reach out probably and ask. The only metric that I know that's specific is the wind. When you talk about the wind, there's this category called windy as fuck. That is sustained winds over 17 miles an hour. That's the only metric that I know for certain. But anyway, getting back to these greens, they have they've been fast the past few years. So I'm going to assume, and it's a little dangerous to assume, but I'm going to assume they're going to make it fast again this year. So let's look at keeping the bent filter and adding this green speed of fast, and really narrow in on who should, at least based on past performance, has putt well on fast bent greens. And while I do that, I'm going to grab a little note card that I had here on some research I did yesterday. So when you add fast with bent as your filters for the last 24 rounds on fast bent greens, Kevin Na is number one, which shouldn't be a surprise. He's known as a very good short game player. Denny McCarthy is known as a world-class putter. Bo Hostler, Adam Hadwin, Kevin Kisner, Chase Seifert, not sure how to pronounce that, and Andrew Putnam, Brian Gay. These guys are all known as putters, or at least short game players, most of them mainly putting. Bo Hostler is known as a great putter. Adam Hadwin's a great putter. Chase Seifert, Andrew Putnam, Brian Gay. Bryson doesn't get enough credit for generally how good of a putter he is. He's very hot and cold, hit and miss, but the weeks he's hot. I mean, he'll run the gamut of lap the field, look back and laugh opponent numbers when he's hot with the putter. Ricky Fowler, his resurgence, I'll call it a resurgence. He was gone there for quite a while. The reason he got to be so high in the successful and high ranked in the world, he was an outstanding putter, consistent, good putter. So that'll give you an idea, if you value putting more than I do, who are some of the players that you should maybe focus on, and at some pretty good prices. Spoiler alert, I'll get into it later. I'm high on Kevin Na this week at $7,500. Bryson at $11,100 is very expensive, but he's played this course very, very well in the past. And this is why I kind of made some changes to the layout that you will see, because I was never able to show you, or at least especially in the data dive, that some of this, I think most of this would get cut off whenever I would try to show bottom of the page type stuff. But now you can see it. This is his history at this event, which has been played at TPC River Highlands for as far back as I can remember. In the past 5 years, 6th, 8th, 9th, and then 26th and 47th. So the past 3 years, he's had top 10s. Generally, this is a club down course, layup course, whatever it is, whether Bryson chooses to do that and gets, that much more distance on his layups, or he just overpowers the golf course. I don't know, but numbers don't lie. So I mean, he's played this very, very well in the past. Something else to kind of think about, the rough is generally pretty long. Definitely not as long as it was at the U.S. Open, but it's kept pretty long, and long rough just doesn't bother Bryson. Say what you want about the way he approaches the game. Long rough just doesn't bother him. He can get through it much better than other players can. So if you value putting, there are some guys to look at. And in regards to why I wanted to filter down to 24 rounds, if you make the sample too big, you're going to get stats from 2016 and backward. Just for example, someone like Jason Day or Justin Rose, who has played this event in the past, but some of those rounds could be from 2013 that you're still getting in your data sample. And to me, I'm not going to value much of anything that far back. So that's why whenever I start to add filters like bent, fast greens, we'll look at Pete Dye. This is a Pete Dye course, so we'll filter on Pete Dye here in a little bit. That's why I kind of narrow the sample size. And these are some of the courses that classify as fast and bent greens. You've got Bethpage, which was the 2000, I believe, 17, maybe 18 PGA, but there are there are consistent events across PGA seasons that have fast bent greens. One of them being the Charles Schwab, and that's at Colonial. That was played earlier this year, so we can take a look at that leaderboard and see who putt well that week. The Memorial, which is at Muirfield. Oh shoot, I always do that. Muirfield. This was the work day, but generally Muirfield is kept at fast. We can take a look at that riverboard. I was looking at. We can take a look at that leaderboard and see who putt well that week. Another one is TBC Scottsdale. This the Waste Management Phoenix Open out in the desert. I don't think there's a lot of correlation between that course and this one, for obvious reasons. Scottsdale desert, ball generally runs out, longer course, but the greens are very similar, fast, bent. And then the last one is TBC Summerlin, which is the Shriners in the fall. So there are 4 events throughout the year consistently that have fast bent greens. So we can take a look at that, especially the Charles Schwab and the Memorial, which has been played very recently. But I just wanted to highlight that as comp courses for greens. And then, so let's zoom back out here. We'll go last 36 rounds. We're going to remove the fast greens and the bent greens. Again, this is the baseline 36 rounds. Patrick Reed being number 1. Now let's filter on Pete Dye courses, because some guys play Pete Dye courses well and some guys don't. When you take a look and add the Pete Dye filter down here, strokes gained total, Dustin Johnson, the first thing that jumps out is Dustin Johnson rises from 23rd to 3rd. That is a significant leap. He plays Pete Dye courses extremely well. Someone else to take a look at who is known as a Pete Dye course aficionado, specialist, whatever, is Siwoo Kim. Now, everyone's going to say Siwoo Kim homer, and I fully admit I will sink with the ship of Siwoo Kim. I'm a fanboy of Siwoo Kim, all that stuff. But there's no denying his performance at Pete Dye courses. So that's something to consider this week in your DFS evaluations and bets. But being the DFS show, we're going to more focus on that. Pete Dye courses, gives you a quick idea. Abraham Answer number 1, and he's number 1 on a lot of things across Pete Dye courses. So I am targeting Abraham Answer a lot this week. I'm sure I'm not the only one. We'll take a look at ownership projections here in a bit. But Abraham Answer, D-Sham, DJ, Cantlay, Paul Casey, Brian Harmon, who has popped on putting and on Pete Dye courses. So that's a name to take a look at very, very heavily. Brooks, Scott, Day, Reed, Keegan, Joaquin Neiman. So, the cream usually rises to the top. But again, this is the past 36 rounds for Pete Dye courses. As we add filters, I like to bring it down because somebody like Justin Rose, this could be bringing in stats that are, a long time back. So let's narrow it in on the past 24. And DJ does fall a bit to 7th. But, from 23rd to 7th on Pete Dye, you can't argue. Still have Answer, D-Sham, Casey, Cantlay, Harmon, Scott. Same guys. A little bit of change in the order just because guys have, either played better recently or whatnot. So, one name I did want to highlight there, Siwoo again, but is Harold Varner. Harold Varner's been playing pretty good golf lately, and he is very cheap in DFS this week. Bent is his best surface. He's not a good putter. Just call it what it is. He's not a good putter, but it is his best surface by far. His game's actually in pretty good form lately. Not outstanding, but certainly good enough for his price point. And there's weeks where if you get any positive contributions, if he's not an abject failure on the greens, he's going to do okay. He got second at the RBC Heritage, lost off the tee, sure, but there's a reason why I'm putting a lot of stock into this, and we'll go back to the filter here in a bit, but RBC Heritage is the perfect comp course for TPC River Highlands. Basically, it's Pete Dye and it's short, and Harold Varner played extremely well there. And again, I'm willing to take a bet on a guy who is inconsistent with the putter, volatile with the putter. But anyway, so there's Pete. I wanted to highlight Harold Varner. There's the Pete Dye filter. Let's add the less than 7,200. If you haven't checked out the initial research show, go back and do so. What are you doing? Stop the video right now, go watch that, and then come back. But Pete Dye, this is a course that is under 7,000 yards. That is astronomically small, microscopic small for PGA Tour standards. So let's add Pete Dye and very short courses. And the last 24 rounds, DJ finally rises to the top. To be expected, he's number one in the world. But I want you to see that there are only four comp courses with Pete Dye as the architect, and they're under 7,200 yards. Harbor Town Golf Links, which is the RBC Heritage we just looked at with Harold Varner. To me, it's almost the perfect comp course. The stadium course is PGA West, and I have, where'd it go? I have the other, notes that I took on events there. I kind of highlighted the putting. These are the events for these four courses. The RBC Heritage, this is obviously this week. The Travelers Championship, God, it's been a long couple of days. I'm losing my mind. TPC Sawgrass, most famous, the players. And the stadium course is, it just escaped me. Oh, the Amex. Sorry. The American Express, which is played as one of the, I think it's the first event after the Hawaii double of the Tournament of Champions and the Sony. You come back and you play the American Express, which has been everything under the sun. Bob Hope Classic, Humana Challenge, but now it's called the American Express. So we can take a look, because all three of these courses have been played this year, and we can see who kind of rises to the top on those. So I I filter down to the last 24 rounds because that's if you make the cut, it's 2 years worth of data, and I think that's reasonable for what you're trying to glean. So you add all that together. You've seen a couple of names. You saw the putters. Now you've seen generally who plays well on short Pete Dye courses. I kind of want to take a look at proximity, which is how close to the hole you're getting with your approach shots from certain categories, 75 to 100, 100 to 125, so on and so forth. This is ranked by pricing right now, and I kept the same filters on because I really want to see who plays these Pete Dye short courses well with the distances that are going to be most prominent at TPC River Highlands, and that's this range and this range. So first we'll take a look at the 125 to 150. Scott Stallings, Will Gordon, Peter Malnati, Zach Johnson again, who's known as a short game player. Emiliano Grillo, there's Siwoo, Stadler, Munoz, Sepp Straka, Harmon, who's been popping a lot. There's a reason why he is one of the betting favorites and pretty high on DraftKings pricing. Brendan Steele, Burgoon, Homa, Potter, Lashley. Those are your top 15 for this distance. The key is you want to find somebody like Zach Johnson who has done well at both distances because they're both fairly common. And the reason I say that is we come to TPC River Highlands, the approach shot distribution here. The red line is your tour average. So last week at Torrey Pines, the red line didn't change, but this was up here and this was up here because more approach shots came from longer distance. Here it's the opposite. You've got 24.5 for approach shots from 150 to 175. The tour average is 20.3, so 4 percentage points, more than 4 percentage points more here at TPC River Highlands, and again, almost 3 percentage points more from 125 to 150. That's the reason why I'm focusing in on these two ranges this week. So we'll take a quick gander. Someone like Zach Johnson, you want to see who's good in both. Siwoo's pretty good in both. You got Sebastian Munoz, who's great in both. Ryan Moore's pretty good in both, 19-2. Paul Casey down here is 30-6. So there's the 125 to 150. When you go to 150 to 175, you got Tom Hoagie, Ryan Moore. We just mentioned Chez Reavie, who's not bad at the other one either. Nate Lashley's 15-4. Michael Thompson, who's apparently really bad from 125 to 150. Paul Casey, Abraham Answer, who's mediocre at the first range. Very good at both. Kevin Na, Kadira, Herman, list goes down. Scott Stallings. So that gives you an idea of guys who are generally pretty proficient on Pete Dye courses of this length from the distance that most of the approach shots are going to come this week. Now, if you want to take a step back and you want to see, you don't want to be that narrow. Maybe you just want to see who plays short courses well. So we'll take the Pete Dye filter off. Maybe you just want to see who plays short courses well. You're still going to get a lot of the same guys, especially for the last 24 rounds. Scott Stallings, Will Gordon, Peter Malnati now pops. Zach Johnson, Grillo, Siwoo, Stadler, Sebastian Munoz, Sepp Straka pops now. Harmon, Steele, Burgoon, Homa. So a lot of the same names for the 125, 150. We'll take a look at the other one. Tom Hoagie, still number 1. Ryan Moore, Chez Reavie, Lashley, Thompson, Casey. A lot of the same names, but just in case you wanted to take a bigger picture, not narrow it down on just Pete Dye courses, but all courses for less than 7,000 yards or 7,200 yards. So there you go. Let's start getting into the real heavy analysis of the DFS stuff. I'm going to show you a bit of my stat model, what I've pretty much narrowed down on what I'm going to use here. I'm going to do the past 36. And once it loads, you'll see that as always, I value strokes gained approach almost always the highest at 25%. Again, that's just the type of player that I prefer. I did put putting at 15%. Normally I put it at 5, maybe 10 if I'm feeling a little frisky. Putting is going to be so very important this week. I've got it at 15. Off the tee is not going to matter as much, so I only have 5, around the green 5. Birdies are better. You're going to have to take advantage of the par 5s here. There's only 2, and they're very, very gettable. They're shorter, but you have to make birdies on that, and sometimes eagles to win this event. DJ won this at minus 19 last year. It's been as high as minus 22 or so. You got to take advantage of the par 5s and the easier par 4s. There's 2 drivable par 4s as well. So that's why I added this birdies are better gained. The plurality of holes come from 450 to 500. There's 7 of the 12 par 4s come within this range, and I think 1 or 2 others fall just before or just after that distance. So a lot of the holes are going to come from here. Kind of going with the birdies or better gained. I want to see who plays par 5s really well, and I've told you about the 2 distances that I kind of want to focus on. So my rankings for the last 36 rounds, and I need to add the less than, or take away the less than 7,200, but it gives you a pretty good idea based on these metrics who plays the short course as well. Brendan Steele, DJ, Cantley, Varner again. This is why I was high on Naw, Scott, Siwoo, who's a Pete Dye guy. Joel Damon is one that is not in the field. That's why I'll star him. He is not in the field this week. There's a few others, like I mentioned, Daniel Berger. I don't see the others right now. Abraham Answer, Henley, Rose, Koepka. Let's remove the short course filter. Keep the same statistical model and percentages. And number 1 should be, I think it's either Brooks or it's Answer. I can't remember. Both of them are up there. Yeah, it's Brooks. Brooks at 1, Cantley at 2, DeChambeau at 3. I was surprised to see Max Homa at 4. Had off a terrible U.S. Open. I'm like a jaded ex-lover. I was really high on Homa. I had quite a bit of money wagered on him, and he shit the bed. So, kind of like a jaded ex-lover. I don't want to see his name right now. Streelman, Answer, Grillo, Hoffman, Casey, Burns. Those are your top 10. But to be fair to Homa, he's been playing very well lately. Just last week, I mean, it's a tough course. So that's with no filters in the past 36 rounds. You want to narrow it in. This is why you should get Fantasy National, so you can make your own statistical model. Find your winner and tell me how stupid I am. But for now, this is what I'm showing you. This is what I got. I'm trying to help. Trying to. So anyway, based on these rankings here, I'm going to bring up, it's going to hurt your eyes for a bit. I've got my Excel program loaded up here, and I've got it sorted right now by salary. You remember Brooks was number 1, Cantley was number 2, Bryson was 3. So I'll try to cover this somewhat fairly quickly, as I've gotten pretty long on time already. Of your top tier, and what I consider top tier, 10K and more, there's 3 of the top 3 guys are here, fairly chalky. To me, I would go Cantley just because he's the cheapest, but according to Fantasy National, the ownership projections, Cantley is the highest at 18.5%. So that's a lot of probably thinking that, trying to save some money. So he's pretty chalky. You've got Let's see. Patrick Reed's at 12.5%. I'm not as high on Patrick Reed. He certainly could win, but I've got him lowest in my statistical model of the 5. Bryson's at 12.5. DJ's at 10.5. So you're starting to get a little bit of value there. A little bit of oh shoot, I hit the wrong button. Well, shucks, now I got to reload that. Get a little bit of value there in win equity that not a lot of people are on DJ. Let's see, I got to fix this here real quick. I apologize. Let's just add some of these guys real quick so we can see the ownership projections. I'm just going to add the top 15. And ownership projections. And while that loads, I'll bring you back to the Excel. Yeah, so you've got Cantley's actually fallen now that it's updated. I did that in the morning. You got Cantley at 16.5, Bryson at a little over 12, Reed at 10.5, DJ at 10%. So it looks like Brooks is the guy that's kind of not necessarily being forgotten about. He's being used, but he's certainly the pivot up here. And I'm not going to argue with it. I mean, he's number 1 in my rankings for a reason. So he's at the nice, midpoint here in pricing. And if you decide to use Brooks, it leaves you with an average of a little under 7,900 per player if you wanted to go the Brooks route. Now, the key is if you're going to use Brooks or one of these top end guys, you're going to have to find some value down here. And spoiler alert, there are some values down there, and that's what we'll get to. But of these top 5, there's really no wrong one to do. I would advise going against DJ just because he's so expensive. Just like last week with John Rahm, he was the most expensive. He won the tournament. I never advocated that he was a bad play. It was just going to be really difficult to squeeze in top tier performers with John Rahm in your lineup. If you use John Rahm, you were going, maybe to Xander or Victor and then dropping into the 7s very quickly. And you were going to have to use maybe 1 or 2 6K guys if you were going to use Rahm last week. The same goes for DJ this week. Again, not a bad play. Absolutely could win this tournament. He won the tournament last year. But I'm going to shy away from him just because of the price point. He is only at 10%, so it's 10% projected ownership. So it's not that the whole tournament is on him, or the whole, the people that are playing DFS are on him. But I'm just going to kind of stay away. I like Brooks this week. I like Desham this week just because he's played this course very well. Cantley has popped in all the models. So, take your pick. I just chose Brooks because he was number 1, and he seems to be the lowest owned of the guys. So if you can find guys who are less owned, that is where you get your leverage, your win equity. Moving down to the 9Ks, Casey at 99. He's in top tier on most of the models. There's a reason he is sitting at 20% ownership. He is, I believe, the second highest calculate. Yeah. So him and Abraham Answer are both over 20%. Completely chalky. I'm going to eat the Abraham Answer chalk for sure. I like his chances a lot. He doesn't play the par 5s extremely well, and that's a little bit concerning. But everything else is very solid across the board. Very solid. So I'll eat that chalk, especially at 9,100. I mean, you can go Brooks, Abraham Answer easily, and you still have 75 per player. And if you're willing to go dip your toes in the 6Ks, I mean, you can grab, another mid 8 to high 8 type guy. So I like Casey in this range, but I'll probably fade that chalk at 20, a little over 20%. But I'll eat the Answer chalk. I like Answer a lot this week. It's a gut feeling thing. Casey's not necessarily the wrong choice. Scheffler, I mean, all these guys are rating high in my model. Matthew Wolff, I literally shrugged my shoulders last week, and he played extremely well at the U.S. Open. So now he's back, I guess. But going into this price range, you've got the chalk that I mentioned. Scheffler's chalky, Neiman chalky, Finau. Finau's not as chalky as he normally is. The public just gravitates towards Tony Finau. The pivot is Matthew Wolff right now. He is projected less than 5%. So if you're going to try to make the all-contrarian lineup, you've got Brooks and Matthew Wolff right now. And at 7,500, I mean, you could probably try to squeeze in Abraham Answer here. But, we're just going to try to build a little sample lineup here. That's the 9Ks. Again, I like Answer. All of these guys were rating well in my model. Neiman's the lowest for me, and he's still 27s. It's not bad. Moving down into the 8Ks, you've got Bubba at 89. Brian Harman, who we've talked about, who pops in almost all the models, is at 88. Smith at 87. Hoffman at 86. Siwoo, a known Pete Dye course lover, 85. Rose, 84. Henley, 83. So you got one at each 100 of the price range. In this region, Brian Harman's the extreme chalk. You've got English is chalky. Siwoo's very, not as chalky as Harman, but chalky. Everybody likes Charlie Hoffman just because of the form he's in. I can't argue. You want to pivot this week in this range. It is Bubba at 89, Cam Smith at 87, which this course, I can see this being a Cam Smith course. He has historically been very bad off the tee. I don't think it's going to come into much of a factor this week. He is a short game specialist. I don't know how much around the green's going to come into play, but if he's playing well with his irons, I think he's got a very, very good chance at winning. Let me sort here and switch the view real quick so that way you all can see what I'm looking at here. Apologies. Again, that's why I have a hard time switching between Excel and the web page because there's a lot to it. Let's sort on this salary and let's just, gosh dang it. Let's take a look at Cameron Smith real quick and let's see how some of his form is. He's been great on the greens lately. His approaches have been mediocre, literally mediocre, but they are volatile. When he's gaining a lot. When he's losing a lot. So that's why it's been averaging out to 0 up here. Cam Smith's somebody I kind of like this week, especially on a contrarian play. When he's less than 5% owned right now, at least on DraftKings projected. Like RBC Heritage, the comp course talked about, came tied for 9th or solo 9th. The Players, another comp course, 17th. WGC Mexico, which was at Congressional this year, those are the fast bent greens, all tied for 11th. So there's a lot to like about Cam Smith this week. A lot to like about Cam Smith. So I'll switch back to the Excel here, and let's put in Cam Smith as this contrarian lineup build here. And I'm not advocating to go completely contrarian, but you can make a solid lineup of just contrarian plays, especially this week. And I'll talk about the tiers here in a little bit. But this is for classic gameplay on DraftKings. Like I said, I'm always gonna like Siwoo Kim. I'm a fanboy. I'm a lifer. Sink with the ship. So he's not as chalky as Abraham Answer, but I'll use Siwoo. I'm not high on English. I guess people are gravitating towards him on the good U.S. Open. I'm not there. I like Adam Scott a lot this week too. and he's only at 7.5%. So if it were me doing a contrarian lineup, I like Cameron Smith and I like Adam Scott a lot this week. Bubba not so much, just because of the statistical models, but he is very good at the range of par fours. He's very good off the tee, so if he can maneuver his way around the course, Bubba's just as talented as anybody. So with this contrarian lineup, we have about 7,100 left per player. Going into the 7Ks, I'm not going to read through all of these just because there's so many of them. The chalk in here, Keegan Bradley at 16.5%. That's a lot. And he ranks 19th. I mean, he's a good play. He's playing well. Played this course pretty well, I believe, in the past. Griot's at 15%. I love Griot this week. Him and Answer are the two that I'm probably be willing to eat the chalk on. I mean, the heavy chalk. Siwoo's chalk that I'll always eat. But Griot, love this week. It concerns me a bit about the par fives. Just full disclosure, I don't know how much around the green is going to matter here. So if it matters a lot, Griot's going to suck. But if it doesn't matter very, very much at all, we're looking pretty good. So I'll eat this chalk here. I like a lot of the people in this range. I've mentioned how I'm high on Kevin Na, even though ranking is 73rd. I've just got to. I mean, he's played the Sony Open well, which is a short course. It's one of those gut feeling type things. Shorter course, he can putt. Putting's going to be very important, and it's just kind of a gut feeling on Na. But in this range, obviously, I like Sam Burns. Homa's high. Again, that's just the jaded lover in me that I'm not using him, or jaded ex-lover. Varner I like this week. Kevin Na. Na's percentage right now is only at 4.5%. I like that a lot. Like we've mentioned, Griot's at 15.5. Sink's at 9.5. I like Sink a lot. Ricky's garnering some ownership at 11%. Another name too I like, Brendan Todd. Brendan Todd cannot hit the ball past where he hears it. He's just very short off the tee, but he can putt, especially on. That's not the right category. There he is. Putting. I mean, he can putt. I think it's going to be very important this week. He's not been playing well with his irons, and that really scares me. But if there was ever a course made for Brendan Todd, it's this one. I like him a lot, and he is sitting at 3.5%. So, I mean, you've got a couple of contrarian plays here that I really, really like. I don't see too much else on here, but just because we need to save some money here, we got 71 per player. Let's plug in Brandon Todd, even though he's a bit more of a riskier option. But, when you're doing these contrarian type lineups, you're going to have to take some risks. Hoping that, say Brendan Todd's, where'd he go? Brendan Todd, 73. There he is. We're hoping that Brendan Todd, his irons do come to play this week. Or maybe he does find an eagle or more birdies this week. When you're getting down into this range, you're not going to find your DJs, obviously. You're not going to find your Cantlays that are very good across the board. You're going to have some guys that are struggling or just consistently bad at something. This is where you have to try to find your values. And I think Brendan Todd's going to be a pretty good value this week for the reasons I mentioned. We've got 7K and 2 guys left to fill. I don't see a lot at the bottom end of the 7K. I'll kind of highlight Kyle Stanley. He's been playing pretty well. He's very, very good with wedges and short irons. I'm neutral on Kyle Stanley. I wouldn't mind playing him. I also wouldn't be completely disappointed if he didn't make a lineup for me. But he is sitting at a little under 10% right now, so it seems very lukewarm interest in him already around the DFS world. Getting to the high sixes. I like Neesmith, but mainly that's just because of the approaches and being weighted at 25%. He's going to be higher in my models than others because he can't putt or chip, at all. He's a complete, total fucking train wreck in that category. Surprises me that he doesn't play the length of these par fours very well. And I think I needed to put 400 to 450. Whoops. That's awkward. But I'm just going to hide this column. That would make sense why he doesn't play those well, because they're generally longer and he's not the longest off the tee. But you know, if you really value approaches, Neesmith's a guy that you can look at. He is garnering just at 2% right now. It looks like a balanced lineup is the way to go, or at least the way people are going this week. Kyle Stanley is the cheapest half chalky play at just under 10%. And then it goes up to Steele at 7,200. So if you can find a guy in this 6K range that performs well this week, you're going to be gaining a whole lot of leverage on the field. A whole lot of leverage. I'm not sure it's Neesmith, but that's the kind of player you kind of want to try to find. Somebody who's got something. They have something that they're good at, and hope that it stays. Like you got Matthew Neesmith, good at approach. Adam Hadwin, lights out putting. You know, you got to hope that the wedges show up. You got to hope that he isn't a failure off the tee, but he can putt. And this is going to be a course that depends on putting. So Adam Hadwin's another guy that you can kind of throw in there and hope that. At this point, it's kind of like, you know, throwing at a dartboard, especially when you get down in this range. But let's add Adam Hadwin because of his putting prowess. So that leaves you 7,100 for one more guy, and Carlos Ortiz rates out highly in the model. Zach Johnson popped on a lot of things. I'm not nearly as high on Zach Johnson. All his stuff comes in putting and short game. Hadley the same. Kisner. Matt Jones is a winner this year. Very good around the green. I just don't know how much it's going to come into effect. So let's. Why don't we bump Cameron Smith down? I mentioned I like Adam Scott. And this is still a fairly contrarian lineup here. Now we're at 7,800, where we could go Max Homa or Phil Mickelson. I'm going to pick Max Homa. And there's a 50,000. I mean, you're hitting your budget on the number. If you want to be contrarian, leave $100 on the table. If you don't like Max Homa, you know, use Sam Burns. You're at $49.9. You're leaving $100 on the table, but that alone is going to give you a bit of uniqueness if you want to add somebody like an Abraham Answer or whatnot. So, I mean, this is the contrarian play lineup, and I wouldn't hate it. I like Brooks quite a bit. I'm all about Adam Scott this week. I don't know what to make of Wolf. He had one very good tournament. I kind of want to see it at least one more time, maybe two, before I say he's back. I was that way with Cantlay earlier, and I was that way with Ricky. And Cantlay's clearly back. Ricky is quickly proving that he is back. I do like Brendan Todd this week. Adam Hadwin's a complete, dart throw. Sam Burns he just filled the 77 to 7,800. But again, I just wanted to show you kind of a process of building a classic lineup based on these rankings. The tiers, real quick, for those of you who might not know, you're given a set of players per tier. You have six tiers, so there's a designation of who falls in which tier. That's these right here. Let me see if... Let me stream here. Yeah, okay. I wanted to make sure that you all could see that. You all can. The top four guys are your in tier 1 this week. I would pick Brooks because it just seems like he is, not just because he's number one, it seems like he is the one that's being forgotten about. Certainly none of these are bad picks. Bryson's, I mean, you can't really go wrong. I would choose Brooks just because of the lack of ownership or the uniqueness of it, or of him. Then you get in the tier twos. You got Patrick Reed, Scotty Scheffler, Matthew Wolff, Tony Finau, and Bubba Watson. Based on my rankings, I go Scotty Scheffler. I think. Let me highlight these rows here just to make sure. That one, that one, that one, and that one. Yeah, I mean it's Scotty Scheffler by whatever 12, 13, and 14. I like Patrick Reed. Patrick Reed. The one person I'm kind of fading is Bubba Watson, in tiers, that is. He is certainly a contrarian play this week. He's got a low ownership. Again, I'm not going to use Matthew Wolff for much. Tony Finau coming off a poor U.S. Open where a lot of people thought he was going to be good. To me, I'd be between Scotty Scheffler and Reed. I'd pick Scheffler. Reed's not necessarily a bad play either. So that's your tier 2. Tier 3, Paul Casey, Kevin Streelman, Abraham Ancer, Joaquin Niemann, Brian Harman, Justin Rose. This is pretty easy for me. Justin Rose, I'm scratching off. His game is God knows where. Fucking lost right now. Casey, chalky. Abraham Ancer, chalky. Brian Harman, chalky. And certainly picking one guy that's chalky isn't bad. I would choose Abraham Ancer. I would choose Abraham Ancer just because I'm really high. Casey's not a bad choice, but if you wanted to go contrarian on tier 3, it would be Niemann. Niemann or Streelman. I'm more confident in Niemann. But again, I mean, if I'm trying to build the best lineup, I would go Casey or Ancer. Tier 4, you've got Siwoo, Russell Henley, Harris English, Mark Leishman, Adam Scott, and Phil Mickelson. Well, this is where I would eat the chalk. I would be between Siwoo and Adam Scott, and I would put those kind of interchangeably. If I were going to play a tiers contest, which I don't, I would make several lineups and choose the ones with Siwoo and Adam Scott. That's where I would eat the chalk in the tiers contest. Tier 5, really quickly, Cameron Smith, Charlie Hoffman, Keegan, Max Homa, Garrick Higo, Francesco Molinari, and Jason Day. Day's interesting. I don't know where his game is. According to my statistical model, it's Homa, never a doubt. Charlie Hoffman is a good play. We've said over and over, Siwoo Kim, Keegan Bradley's good. So there's a lot of very good options here in Tier 5. I would stay away from Day only because I don't know where he's at. If you're willing to take that gamble, by all means. I'm not going to tell you not to. Molinari is interesting. So Tier 5, you can go kind of whatever way you want. And finally, Tier 6, you've got Tringali, Doc Redman, Harold Varner, Kevin Na, Ian Poulter, and Ricky Fowler. Ricky's kind of a wild card. If he's truly back, then sure. He's a good play. I don't like Poulter this week. Kevin Na, we've talked about. Harold Varner, I like. We've talked about. Doc and Tringali, yeah. I mean, certainly contrarian. I'll give you that. Certainly contrarian. Tringali's at 7.5. Redmond's 8.5, so he's a bit more. Molinari's only at 5%. So, yeah, that's the way I see a tiers. How I would build a tiers contest. Couple of things before we wrap up. I'm going to transition here to a web page focus. Sorry for throwing your eyes off of whack there. Let's take one more quick update at the weather. This is an airport that is about 20 minutes northeast of the golf course. It was the closest thing I could find that has a measured wind tower. And it looks pretty benign. It was pretty windy earlier in the week. It looks like it's calmed down, especially for the cut days. A little bit more breezy in the afternoon, up to 10, but there's not a lot of gusts, and that's kind of a key thing when you're talking about trying to evaluate whether you should play a morning wave or an afternoon wave. It looks like, if you're just going by wind, it looks like the AM, so the guys that are early on Thursday, have very little wind, and very little wind in the afternoon as well. So if you want to buy into an AM PM split, I would go early Thursday, late Friday. It's not that the afternoon wave, PM AM has atrocious conditions. They don't, but certainly as of right now, and I mean this can change in the next hour. It looks like AM PM has a bit of an advantage, if that's a route you want to go. Then Saturday and Sunday look fun. More sustained wind, much more breezy. That makes it interesting. I like that. Challenges the players. It looks like it's going to be a beautiful weekend. Sunday looks like it's going to get hot. 86 on Saturday isn't too bad. 90 in Connecticut, I imagine, is rare-ish. Probably not for the summer, but Thursday and Friday look beautiful. High of 79, high of 77. So that was one last look at the weather. Because I saw the AM PM split. Let's take a look and see who are some of the names that we've kind of popped for the AM and PM. So you got Harold Varner that's out early Thursday. That's not good because it's a PM AM split that it was AM PM. Sorry, yeah, AM PM. So Harold Varner is a name that we've talked about. Charlie Hoffman's AM PM. Ryan Moore, Streelman, Answer, Justin Rose, if you're in on Justin Rose, Cameron Smith, Munoz, Scotty Scheffler, Neiman, feature group of Higo, Cantley, and Leishman, Brendan Steele. The second one is Sink, Desham, and Reed. Adam Scott's in the morning. Sam Burns is in the morning. Day. Brendan Todd's in the morning. Wow, a lot of people I've highlighted are in the morning. Let's see. Anyone else? No. Guido. I don't know how to pronounce his name. He's in the morning. So what's that leave in the PM AM? Hadwin, if you're using putting and doing that contrarian. Harmon, Henley, Doc Redmond, Neesmith, Molinari, Fowler, Wolf, Nah, Casey, Bubba, Phil, Brooks, DJ, and Finau. And again, it's not that these guys have such a severe, obvious disadvantage. It's, it's 10 mile an hour gust to 12, whereas the AM on Thursday is 3 to 4 mile an hour with 6 gust. I mean, it's a factor, but how much of a factor? It's not like it's no wind versus all the wind. Siwoo, Poulter, Harry Higgs, the fan favorite. Yeah, so it looks like a lot of the guys that I've highlighted are in the morning wave tomorrow. So if that's an angle you want to take, by all means. I might do a little bit. Some of the lineups I do will probably have a little bit of an AM PM split, but otherwise, that's the DFS show for the Travelers this year. Again, comment below. What are you looking at? What are you valuing this week? How are you doing? How'd you do at the U.S. Open? Let me know how you did this week in the comments. As always, please hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel. Support's always appreciated. Share with your friends. Hopefully this is helping you all. I'm having fun doing it. Like I said, I'm a data guy. I love giving my statistical views on things. Whether they're right or wrong, I'll own it. I'll own whether I get something right or wrong. Last thing before we go, just to be transparent, I've got notes on my betting card this week. So I've got win ticket on Answer at 25-1, Kevin Naw at 66-1, Adam Scott at 70-1, and Stuart Sink at 80-1. And then I doubled up a couple of these with top 20s. I've got Milano Grillo, Brendan Todd, Adam Scott, Harold Varner, Ryan Moore, and Brendan Steele as all top 20 plays and bets. So, and those range from 2.5 to 1 to 4 to 1. So, with that, that's going to be the 2021 Travelers DFS Tactics show. Good luck to all your contests this week, bets or otherwise, especially in the DFS. Hopefully this show helped. And until next time, may all your bets be profitable.